Hello and welcome back to the Tips Round 4 preview. So we're going to be going through all the games. We're going to be tipping them and giving our thoughts on what we think is going to happen. So the first game of the round, we've got Brisbane and Collingwood at the Gabba. So this is a tough game to really tip, I feel like. Both teams having a lot of injuries. Darcy Gardner from the Lions having an AC joint injury. Harris Andrews still missing with suspension, so the Lions are going to be quite short down back. Obviously, with the Pies, they've got Darcy Moore doing a hamstring again, and he has a bursa behind his knee. So both teams are going to be going in with a pretty weakened defence. The Pies usually play quite well at the Gabba, and the Lions have just got their first win of the season after starting 0-2. So it's a really tough one to tip for me. No Pendlebury for the Pies as well. But I feel, my gut feel says the Pies. I'm going to go Collingwood by 8. I know that's probably a bit of a shock. You don't typically tip against Brisbane at the Gabba, but I'm gonna go with the Pies. Okay. North Melbourne versus Carlton. So this one's another tough one. Tristan Cherry has just got a 3-match ban for his incident with Andrew McGrath from Essendon. So the Kangas are going to have to try and figure out who's going to take the ruck duties. Callum Coleman-Jones did play last week, so he might be in frame to take that ruck spot. Jack Darling had a really good game in the VFL, kicking 3 goals. Do they bring him back in? Cooper Trembath could play a bit in the ruck. So they've got a lot of choices there. Carlton, coming off a shock loss to Melbourne, they were up by as much as like 43 points. Obviously lost that game by a couple goals. So Michael Voss is really going to want his boys to get up and going against the Kangas. Otherwise, the writing's pretty much on the wall. Without Cherry, I lean more towards Carlton, and I feel like they're going to have a bounce back game. Albeit, I don't think they're going to win by much. I'm going to go 14 points. Adelaide versus Fremantle at the Adelaide Oval. So another one, 2 finals contending teams. The Crows almost beating the Cats in Geelong, and the Dockers continuing their fast start to 2026. It's going to be a tough one to tip. Assuming Dawson and Laird come back for the Crows, potentially Taylor Walker as well after being managed. The Crows are looking like they're going to have some strong ins. The Dockers have a really good midfield with obviously Brayshaw, Sarong, and their 2 rucks. But I just feel like you don't tip against the Crows in Adelaide. So I'm going to tip the Crows by 15. Next, we've got Port Adelaide and Richmond at the MCG. So this one, I've been toying with this one a fair bit. I thought Port Adelaide was probably going to be one of them sides that probably struggle against the top end teams, but beat up on the smaller teams. But they've lost to West Coast and North Melbourne. So don't really know where it's at with them. They've lost their captain for 3 months. So their midfield's got a lot of fixing to do. Ollie Wines potentially looms as an inclusion. Will Brodie made his club debut, albeit only like 46% game time. So I don't really know where to go here. The Tigers are due for a win. They've played all right in patches, but haven't really put together a 4-quarter performance. Not having Toby Nankervis for 6 weeks really hurts. They don't really have a designated backup ruck. They played Campbell Gray there, I think, against Fremantle. Looked nothing up to the job. Doesn't have the ruck craft, and that's going to hurt their midfield. I'm going to lean towards Port Adelaide, and I'm going to say 21 points. West Coast and Sydney up in Optus Stadium. West Coast coming off a great performance against Port Adelaide, albeit it was a good 3-quarter performance. Their first quarters have been quite shaky, and I think that's where Sydney probably get them here. Can the Eagles start well? And if they can really make this a contest around the ground. Hopefully Heaney's back for the Swans. Will be a huge inclusion. Harley Reid and Dersma continue to show Eagles fans why they continue to have faith in their side in the coming years. I just feel like Sydney have too much class, but I feel like West Coast can really make this a contest early. I'm going to go Sydney by 20 points. Melbourne versus Gold Coast at the MCG. Well, you see, with this one, it's like Gold Coast rarely play at the MCG, but their list is just stacked from top to bottom. Like, even with Petrarca out, they've still got a really good midfield. There was talks that Rao was meant to be back around this time, coming off the bye, but it doesn't really look that way at the moment. And Bailey Humphrey being suspended, no Petrarca. It really opens up the door for Melbourne to make this a contest, but I think a lot of people are just going to back in the class of the Gold Coast Suns, and I think they win this quite comfortably, maybe 24 points. Western Bulldogs and Essendon, probably one of the easier games to tip of the round. The Bombers have looked horrible, albeit they did have a little bit of a late fourth quarter surge against North Melbourne. But apart from that, they've just looked horrible. They don't look like they have a game style that they're trying to implement. A lot of skill errors, one-paced midfield. There's no real running spread from their players, and it's just a mess all over the field. And the Bulldogs are just having a phenomenal start to the year, 3-0, and it's gonna continue that way. And I'm thinking it's gonna be quite a flogging. I'm gonna go the Bulldogs by 45, and it could probably be more than that. And probably the game of the round. I know I'm a Geelong fan, so it's a bit ironic for me to say that, but Easter Monday, big fixture, um, a genuine 50-50 between these teams. You never really see a flogging. They played off in a preliminary final last year, so we're going to get a good contest around the ground. James Warple, if included, will be playing his 150th game against his former side. No Dangerfield for the Cats, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Tom Stewart as captain again for the Geelong side, and I just feel like the Cats get the job done. Um, Maybe like 1 to 2 goals. I feel like the Hawks really do play well against the Cats, and maybe they'll be looking to get their revenge after their preliminary final loss last season. So I'm going to go the Cats by 9 points, but I can genuinely see this going either way. And that is the last game for the round. Let me know what you guys think. Is there any teams I got wrong? Is there anyone you feel like is going to win? I appreciate you guys watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.